Broken Mirror Reunion+Sweet Pet+Dad's boyfriend, bright and gentle Guzheng performer times Abdominal black crazy criticism of Dad's President Ming Sheng, the second miss of the Ming family, is gentle and cold, with distant autumn eyes and a skilled Guzheng. However, in Yuncheng, everyone knows that Ming Sheng has been chasing after He Xiting for 3 years, losing face because the person He Xiting likes is Lin Wei, the arrogant and glamorous young lady of the Lin family. For Lin Wei's sake, He Xiting even allows Ming Sheng to play the Guzheng in the brightly lit bar for fun. Later, when Ming Sheng proposed to break up, He Xiting sneered. He knew that as long as he hooked his hand, Ming Sheng would follow, but this time, He Xiting miscalculated. That day, on the front page of Yuncheng newspaper, it was reported that the Prince Huyanli, whose life and death were unknown, had returned from the Hua family. People in Yuncheng have forgotten that when Huyanli was present, Ming Sheng was the unique and indulgent little princess in Yuncheng. He Xiting saw Huyanli's face, which was 7 parts similar to his own, and dropped the wine glass in his hand. Later, he lost his soul and begged Ming Sheng to turn back like a dog. However, Ming Sheng remained gentle as before in front of him. Young master I'm very sorry. Chapter 1. He Xiting, let's break up. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ming Sheng is the person that Huyanli would go to see even if he crawled out of hell. The night in Yuncheng is always bright with lights and wine, and there is no silence to speak of. Milan Night is a famous bar and nightclub in Yuncheng, and it is a membership bar where only influential second-generation children can enter. In the largest private room at night in Milan, Ming Sheng stood at the door, wearing a black fragrant dress, yet still out of place. Ming Sheng, the second daughter of the Ming family, followed her mother and was a girl raised in the misty reign of Jiangnan. She was like water and had never been the most extraordinary place in her life. She had been chasing the young master of the He family, He Xiting, for 3 years since she was 21 years old. Ming Sheng sat there, while He Xiting sat in the middle of the sofa, giving her a cold look. Ming Sheng had a soft and weak personality, not his type. But just because Ming Sheng likes it, his father seems to order him to be with Ming Sheng, but he doesn't know that this will only make He Xiting even more annoyed by Ming Sheng. Is there no dignity or pride left for that so-called love? Why, Miss Minger, don't give face, Lin Kai said, holding his glass. Ming Sheng couldn't help but cough a few times. I don't drink alcohol. Lin Kai was dissatisfied. Miss Minger, you are Xiting's girlfriend, which is really embarrassing. Xiting. Ming Sheng, don't be so ignorant. He Xiting lit a cigarette and glanced at Ming Sheng. The night lights in Milan were not dazzling, but in order to create an ambiguous atmosphere, they dimmed a lot. He Xiting sat there, and Ming Sheng could only see half of his face clearly. At first it was just for this face that she chased after He Xiting like crazy, but now at this moment, Ming Sheng's eyes were a bit dazed, and this face didn't seem so similar anymore. Ming Sheng, it's just a glass of wine. Don't be so disappointing. How can you play with us in the future like this? The woman who was speaking sat next to He Xiting. Ming Sheng knew Lin Wei, the eldest daughter of the Lin family. She was a proud and charming woman, and also He Xiting's beloved. Ming Sheng suddenly smiled, and a hint of amazement flashed in Lin Kai's eyes as she stood in front of her. Although the second miss of the Ming family is a romantic brain, she is indeed extremely beautiful. Compared to those mediocre and vulgar fans, the second miss of the Ming family has truly beautiful autumn eyes, like a person made of jade. If it weren't for someone from the Ming family, he would definitely have caught up and played. Ming Sheng looked at the glass cup handed to her, which was filled with cloudy liquor. She had been well protected by her family since childhood and did not like smoking or drinking, so no one dared to let her touch it. Ming Sheng tugged at the corner of her mouth, snatched the glass of wine, and drank it with her head up. She drank it urgently, but she didn't know how to drink it. After drinking it, she only felt that her throat was hot and spicy. Ming Sheng raised his hand to wipe away the liquid left at the corner of his mouth, walked over with a wine glass, and gently placed it on the table. Get up and look at He Xiting sitting there, not even moving. He Xiting, let's break up. After Ming Sheng finished speaking, he turned around and left. Sitting on the sofa, He Xiting was clearly stunned for a moment. Looking at Ming Sheng's back, he instinctively wanted to get up, but just as he left the sofa, he suddenly realized that it was Ming Sheng. It was Ming Sheng who followed behind him, with his eyes only on him. No matter how much he hurt her, he stubbornly wanted to be with him. He Xiting sat back on the sofa, and Lin Wei turned her head to look at him. "Xiting, aren't you going to chase me?" He Xiting sneered, "Don't pay attention. After making such a fuss, maybe you want to achieve something else." "That's right, that's Ming Sheng's goal, right?" He Xiting remembered a few days ago when his parents were secretly saying whether he and Ming Sheng should get engaged. After achieving her goal, she still has to stick it on. "Don't worry about her," He Xiting said, picking up his glass with some annoyance. The private room became lively again, and as for Ming Sheng, no one paid attention because they all knew that Miss Ming, as long as He Xiting hooked her hand, would follow suit again. Like an obedient dog. And Ming Sheng hurriedly walked out of the dark gate of Milan, watching the cars coming and going on the road. It was better to walk first, or wake up and drink. She is indeed not suitable for drinking. The person took the wine glass from her hand and said, "Girls from all walks of life, drinking less is not good for your health." But today, He Xiting let her drink that glass of wine, for the sake of face, for the sake of pleasure. Sure enough, what's fake is fake. Shouldn't she also wake up? Ming Sheng walked for a while and decided to sit on the bench by the roadside. It was early summer now, and the flowers and trees on the roadside had already bloomed, squeezed against the leaves. Even with a street lamp next to them, the bench under the tree was still in a shadow. Drunk first appeared on her face, her fair face tinged with a blush, and then the drunkenness began to rise again. Ming Sheng didn't know he had been sitting for a long time, but felt the clarity in his mind gradually disappear, and he sat aimlessly on the bench. A Bugatti Veyron flew past the road at lightning speed, and the sound of the engine ignited the entire road, causing people to look sideways. The car was parked on the roadside, and the people in the back seat were almost eager to get out of the car. The man wearing a black shirt and pants, his clothes were a bit messy, as if he couldn't wait to rush toward someone. The man under the street lamp is tall and upright, with cold and handsome eyebrows and eyes, both noble and casual. Watching the little drunk sitting there feeling confused, his thin lips pursed and he walked step by step towards Ming Sheng. "You're really not good, didn't you say that without me, you're not allowed to drink?" The man squatted in front of Ming Sheng, looking at him with a towering affection in his eyes, wishing to drown the person in front of him in his own eyes. Unfortunately, now in front of him is a lifeless little drunkard, who doesn't even recognize him. Even if Ming Sheng was drunk, he didn't go crazy with alcohol. Instead, he sat with his hands on his knees, obedient enough to make people feel heartbroken. The man held Ming Sheng's hand and gently kissed his palm. "We have wronged our Sheng." Ming Sheng didn't know who the person in front of her was, but when she faced the person in front of her, a sudden surge of grievance surged in her heart. "I broke up." The force of holding Ming Sheng's hand suddenly increased, but she couldn't bear to let her feel pain. In the end, she only vaguely closed her hand. Sheng likes him." The man's eyebrows and eyes sank, with a hint of hostility flashing between them. How could the girl he had carefully raised be taken away by someone else like this? Ming Sheng shook his head and said, "I don't like it because Hui Yanli wouldn't treat me like that, and Hui Yanli wouldn't bully me." Ming Sheng suddenly shed tears. "He's not Hui Yanli, what should I do? I can't find Hui Yanli." Ming Sheng's grievances were suppressed in her heart for too long, until her heart almost deceived her. She is doing very well now, and she doesn't miss Hui Yanli at all. "You have found it, Hui Yanli has returned." Ming Sheng didn't look at her phone. The news from 3 hours ago was on the front page. Hui Yanli, the crown prince of the Hua family who has been missing for 4 years, appears in Yuncheng. Chapter 2. She almost died 3 years ago. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bugatti was driving slowly in the darkness, with the driver being Hu Yanli's assistant. Today, as soon as Mr. Hu got off the plane, he headed straight to the Ming family, only to see the young lady of the Ming family. He has been with Hu Yanli for 2 years, and this man can calmly mediate with anyone who points a gun at his forehead. After getting off the plane and stepping onto the land of Yuncheng, Hu Yanli's impatience was almost revealed in his heart. Is it for this one? The assistant remembered a casual glance just now, which was a delicate and beautiful little girl, but there was nothing special about it. When he met Hu Yanli, he had already been working hard overseas. They followed Hu Yanli in their work, and sometimes when they had free time, it was inevitable to find a man or a woman. But Mr. Hu never gets close to anyone. The assistant glanced in the rearview mirror and saw that the girl was half held by Hu Yanli, still feeling confused. Hu Yanli noticed his gaze. She's different, she's the lady I raised with my own hands. Every minute and every penny is nurtured according to his preferences, and only Ming Sheng can fit the holes that Hu Yanli has dug in his heart perfectly. I've been away for 4 years, why don't I behave like this? Hu Yanli lowered his head and gently pinched Ming Sheng's delicate chin. Ming Sheng felt dizzy and uncomfortable, so he went to grab Hu Yanli's hand. Let go of me. Ming Sheng, when I left, I didn't listen to my words and didn't take them seriously, did I? Hu Yanli narrowed his eyes slightly and exerted some strength in his hands. Feeling uncomfortable, let go of me. Ming Sheng opened his eyes and looked at the person in front of him. Hu Yanli looked at the person leaning in his arms and was indeed drunk, not knowing what he had drunk. Ming Sheng, do you still know who I am? Who are you? The little girl with watery eyes looked at him with an innocent expression on her face. Hu Yanli almost laughed angrily, you don't know who I am, dare you come with me? He can easily take Ming Sheng away, what if it's not him who came? Will it also be easily taken away? Anyway, it won't be the person I want to see. Ming Sheng suddenly shed tears. I can't find the person I want to see. The accumulated anger in Hu Yanli's heart gradually dissipated, and a hint of guilt appeared in his eyes. I left you first. I was the one who was wrong, but you forced yourself into this way. Hu Yanli only felt the pain spreading from his chest flowing towards his limbs. Over the past 4 years, he had endured all the ups and downs. It was evident that at this moment of Ming Sheng, Hu Yanli was almost at a loss and didn't even know how to comfort her. Mr. Hu, where are we going? Take her back to Ming's house. She hasn't lived in my house for years and will recognize the bed. When Hu Yanli returned with Ming Sheng, Ming Xiao sat on the sofa, looking at an economics book, which was the original English version, filled with annotations. Upon hearing the sound outside, Ming Xiao put down his book, pinched his brow, and stood up to greet him. I thought you just took the person away. Ming Xiao watched as Hu Yanli placed his sister on the bed, took off her shoes and socks, covered her blanket, and even stuffed the doll next to her into Ming Sheng's hands. Ming Xiao looked at the scene he hadn't seen in the past 4 years and still had some nostalgia. Why did you drink? Ming Xiao frowned. Hu Yanli pointed at the door and went out to say. I don't know, when I went over, she said she broke up. The last 3 words were bitten hard by Hu Yanli. Ming Xiao sat on the sofa without saying anything about pouring a cup of tea for Hu Yanli. It's okay to split it up, but if it continues like this, I can't guarantee whether I will hit the Mandarin duck with a stick. They're not Mandarin ducks, that person's name is He Xiting, right? Hu Yanli leaned back on the sofa. Do you just let that thing get close to Sheng Sheng? He Xiting is indeed a waste, but he has a face like that. That's the person I can find who looks the most like you. Hu Yanli closed his eyes and pulled out a cigarette to light it. Sheng Sheng, aren't you doing well? Hu Yanli's voice trembled as he spoke, hidden in the smoke. It's not bad, Ming Xiao paused. I'm going to force myself to death. 4 years ago, everyone said you were dead, but only she refused to believe it. No matter what others said, as long as she didn't see your body, she wouldn't believe it. When Ming Xiao said these words, he also felt a bit annoyed and couldn't help but take out a cigarette. She has been looking for you for a year, and our family can all see that He Xiting is already reaching her limit. On the day you were missing for a year, Ming Xiao's voice choked slightly. She was lost in thought and almost died that day. She told us it was accidental, but I know He Xiting doesn't want to live anymore. The smoke in Hui Yanli's hand burned to his fingertips, as if he hadn't noticed it, allowing his fingers to be burned. So I found someone, at least give her a thought, and I also want to rely on that person to make her understand that Hui Yanli will not come back. Ming Xiao sneered, I was supposed to succeed today, but God knows, you actually came back today. You know, I know the news that you're still alive, what's on my mind? Do you wish I could die outside? Hui Yanli tugged at the corner of his mouth. Yes, Hui Yanli, if you come back now, why don't you die for me 4 years ago? Ming Xiao looked coldly at Hui Yanli's painful expression. If there's another time, if I dare to make my sister suffer like this, and you're alive, I'll kill you too. There won't be another time, never again, Hui Yanli murmured. I'm going to sleep now. As for Mr. Hua, think carefully about what you're going to say to He Xiting tomorrow when she wakes up. Ming Xiao went upstairs to sleep. She was also impacted today, but she breathed a faint sigh of relief. Hui Yanli has returned, and she is not so worried about He Xiting anymore. As for the rest, it is Hui Yanli's own business. As for the He family, she has already given them the reward, so let's divide it up. I also want to pair that thing with their He Xiting. Hui Yanli stayed in the living room of the Ming family all night, and the ashtray in front of him was full. It wasn't until dawn that Hui Yanli asked the butler to open a guest room for him. I'll rinse it, He Xiting doesn't like the smell of smoke. Do I need to get your clothes? The butler also knows Hui Yanli. Miss Air keeps all the clothes you used to wear. Do you need one for you? Hui Yanli remained silent for a moment and took it for 4 years. Ming Sheng hasn't had a beautiful dream for a long time, after all, Hui Yanli hasn't had her dream for 4 years. Ming Sheng opened his eyes and saw a person sitting by the bed. Sister, haven't you gone to work yet? I've already left, He Xiting, have you woken up yet? The person by the bed bent down and Ming Sheng saw the face in front of him clearly. Chapter 3. Their Past. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There's another hallucination. Ming Sheng stared at Hui Yanli for a while before suddenly speaking, his voice soft, as if afraid of disturbing the person in front of him. Didn't the doctor say I'm fine? How could I still have hallucinations? It's time to take medicine again. Ming Sheng sat on the bed, covering his eyes. Hui Yanli reached out and grabbed Ming Sheng's hand. This time, he exerted some strength that could make Ming Sheng feel his presence. He Xiting, open your eyes and look at me. Ming Sheng suddenly held his breath, feeling the warmth of holding his hand. He couldn't help but want to grab the blanket and hide himself. But the person in front of her didn't allow her to escape, just tightly holding her hand. He Xiting, I'm back. I'm Hui Yanli, take a look, brother. Ming Sheng opened his eyes and looked at the person in front of him. His sister was worried about her and took away all the photos of Hui Yanli. She almost thought she was going to forget Hui Yanli's appearance. But after 4 years, when she saw Hui Yanli again, she found that the person engraved in her heart was so easy to forget. Ming Sheng's hand was held in the palm of Hui Yanli's hand. Apart from practicing the Guzheng, Ming Sheng has always kept his fingers away from the spring water. Hui Yanli gently squeezed Ming Sheng's hand. However, Ming Sheng pulled out his hand, raised it, and gently caressed the face in front of him, with a voice as if squeezed out of his throat. Hui Yanli. Well, it's me. The man who has always been aloof, but in front of Ming Sheng, he lowered his head very skillfully. Are you still alive? He Xiting, I'm still alive, I'm back. 4 years ago, you're still alive. Ming Sheng seemed to have been drained of all his essence and energy, almost fainting from the impact of this reality. Well, our Sheng is here. Even if I go to the Yanwang Palace, I have to climb back. Have you lost your memory in these 4 years? Have you been injured? No, Hui Yanli rolled his Adam's apple and looked at Ming Sheng with a heavy gaze. You're okay, you're alive, but for 4 years, for whole years, you can't even make a phone call, can you? Hui Yanli was speechless and just raised his hand to wipe away Ming Sheng's tears, his voice dry and dry, sorry. Ming Sheng shook off his hand and said, go out. Hui Yanli wanted to speak, but Ming Sheng didn't listen and just pushed Hui Yanli's body hard. You go, get out of here. Ming Sheng's strength did not pose any threat to Hui Yanli, but as Hui Yanli looked at Ming Sheng's crying, he realized that Ming Sheng had been pampered by him before, but now he has wronged himself in this way. Okay, Sheng, don't cry. I'll go out now. Hui Yanli took a few steps back and said, I'm right outside. When you want to find me, shout out. Get lost. Ming Sheng threw out his phone next to him when he woke up. Hui Yanli withdrew from Ming Sheng's room and looked at the tightly closed door, recalling the same situation 15 years ago when the door was tightly closed in front of him. 15 years ago, the Ming couple passed away unexpectedly, leaving only 11-year-old Ming Xiao and 9-year-old Ming Sheng in the Ming family. The entire Ming family was in turmoil. Mr. Hua and the old man of the Ming family had a close friendship, bringing Hui Yanli to suppress the Ming family with a strong hand. In order to silence those people and support the 2 orphan daughters of the Ming family, Mr. Hua made a decision to have his grandson and the girl of the Ming family make an engagement. Originally, Ming Xiao was supposed to be chosen, but they were only 2 years apart. However, Ming Xiao and Hui Yanli have the same temperament, both cold and arrogant, and they are like enemies. The most crucial thing is that when he found out that the Ming family was going to make an engagement with the Hua family, Ming Xiao approached the Hua family's old man and requested him to replace the engagement partner with his own sister. I can protect myself, but Sheng can't. Hui Yanli saw Ming Sheng for the first time. Due to losing her parents, Ming Sheng sat on the bed, holding the doll her mother had given her. Hui Yanli opened the door and walked in, looking at the timid look in the little girl's eyes. Ming Sheng. Who are you? Hui Yanli. A 13-year-old boy has already begun to take on the slender posture of a young man, and his facial features can also be seen as handsome. From now on, I will be your family. Hui Yanli rubbed Ming Sheng's hair hesitantly. The little girl in front of her was like a porcelain doll, exquisite and fragile, but Hui Yanli really liked beautiful things. Hui Yanli held Ming Sheng's hand and said, Grandpa said, you will be my responsibility from now on, and I will take responsibility for you. Hui Yanli's parents were engaged in a commercial marriage, and they divorced after giving birth to Hui Yanli. The Hua family has always only had him and his grandfather. But now there are 2 more little girls. Ming Xiao was originally trained by the Ming family according to the standards of an heir. Knowing that the Ming family could only rely on her, she forced herself to grow and was busy every day. After Ming Xiao's countless regrets, she simply voluntarily gave her sister to someone else. Hui Yanli was originally just taking care of Ming Sheng for the sake of his grandfather's orders. But later on, Hui Yanli naturally designated Ming Sheng as his own possession. The little girl he raised with his own hands, with her delicate demeanor and small temper, was what he liked. On the second day of Ming Sheng's adulthood at the age of 18, Hui Yanli kissed her and stamped her seal. On the second day of Ming Sheng's 20-year-old, the 2 of them were supposed to go and get their marriage certificates, but she didn't wait for Hui Yanli to come, but instead waited for the news of Hui Yanli's plane crash. Ming Sheng fell asleep for 3 days, and after waking up, Hui Yanli announced his disappearance. Everyone said that Hui Yanli was dead, but Ming Sheng refused to believe it. She didn't see Hui Yanli's body, so Hui Yanli didn't die. At that time, Ming Xiao even had some resentment towards Hui Yanli. Hui Yanli had to take care of Ming Sheng, but he left with such determination, leaving Ming Sheng alone and enduring such pain once again. Ming Sheng sat in bed for a long time when her phone, which she had thrown to the ground, rang. Ming Sheng walked over and picked up his phone, with Sangwen's name displayed on the screen. Late at night. Ming Sheng cleared his throat and spoke, but his voice could still tell something was wrong. Sheng, what's wrong with your voice? Are you sick? No. Did you cry? Did He Xiting bully you again? Sangwan patted the table. No, we broke up yesterday. So you're upset because of a breakup. Don't be sad, it's late. Hui Yanli has returned. Ming Sheng looked at his nightgown, kneading a small piece of fabric in his hand. There was a long silence on the phone. Sorry, it's so shocking. Hui Yanli actually came back alive. What do you think, Sheng? I don't know, I just feel like he's alive, and these past few years have been like a joke to me. Chapter 4. She always has a soft heart towards you. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ming Sheng waited until lunchtime before walking out of the bedroom, with a fair little face. Why are you still here? Didn't I let you go? Ming Sheng stood on the second-floor staircase, looking down at Hui Yanli from a high position. Sheng is here, where can I go? Hui Yanli placed a cup of iced coffee in front of him and sat on the sofa, calmly looking at Ming Sheng. This is my house, go out. Ming Sheng rushed down from upstairs and stood next to Hui Yanli, pointing to the door. I asked you to leave my house. Okay, then, Sheng and I will go back to Sheng Garden together, okay? When Hui Yanli took over as the head of the Hua family, he changed the name of the Hua family's old house to Xingyuan. No need, that's Mr. Hua's home, not mine. Now, leave my house. Hui Yanli's heart softened as he watched Ming Sheng waving his teeth and claws in front of him. You see, they were clearly so angry, but couldn't even say a heavy word. In this world, Ming Sheng is the person who knows him the best. Naturally, he knows how to hurt him is the easiest, but his Sheng never willing to open his wound. Ming Xiao is right. Hui Yanli reached out and grabbed Ming Sheng's wrist. With a little effort, Ming Sheng fell into his arms. I really have taken care of you very well, Hui Yanli whispered in Ming Sheng's ear, his warm breath brushing against his profile. I'm not good, I don't want to see you at all now, Ming Sheng gritted his teeth and struggled. I know Sheng is very angry, these 4 years have been very sad, haven't they? Hui Yanli, you don't even know why I'm angry. Ming Sheng remained calm in his bedroom for a while, but couldn't help but shed tears as he listened to the gentle and deep voice in his ear. Hui Yanli looked at Ming Sheng sitting in his arms. I'm stupid, can you tell me? Ming Sheng looked at him and said, I'll ask you for the last time, why haven't you come to me in these 4 years? Hui Yanli looked at Ming Sheng, and the hand that held Ming Sheng's palm was covered in calluses, rough on Ming Sheng's skin. The light in Ming Sheng's eyes gradually extinguished as he stood up and said, You go, I really don't want to see you now. Hui Yanli didn't let go, let out a long sigh, and spoke softly, Sometimes, I would rather Sheng be selfish than trust me so much. But how could he not know about the people he raised? The girl in front of me even has a delicate and translucent heart. Hui Yanli unbuttoned his shirt and said, It's a bit scary, Sheng, don't be afraid of me. Ming Sheng stared closely at his movements and ignored him. Hui Yanli unbuttoned one button, and Ming Sheng saw the scars, which were thin but messy, as if there were many. When he unbuttoned the second button, Ming Sheng saw those scars spread all over his chest. Hui Yanli's movements were very slow. Ming Sheng reached out and pulled open his shirt. Hui Yanli had a great figure, with wide shoulders and narrow waist, and tight muscles. But now, Hui Yanli's chest was covered in scars, indicating that he had been injured a long time ago. But these injuries are disorganized, like they were whipped out. What's going on? Why is this happening? Who is Hui Yanli? That is the crown prince of the Hua family, who has been raised with great honor since childhood. Although the Hua family's old man has strict requirements, he also closely protects him. But why did Hu Yanli suffer such harm? Ming Sheng's tears fell on Hu Yanli's chest, so hot that Hu Yanli couldn't help but shudder. I narrowly escaped death, but those who saved me were not good people, Hu Yanli said lightly about the source of his own body. Someone is trying to harm you, isn't it? Ming Sheng's fingertips scratched Hu Yanli's scar. I knew you would be wronged. Hu Yanli held Ming Sheng, who was crying uncontrollably, feeling helpless but also filled with uncontrollable joy. He doesn't like Ming Sheng crying, but he is satisfied with Ming Sheng crying for him. After Ming Xiao returned, he was surprised to see that Hu Yanli was still at their house. Are you still there? Didn't you get kicked out? Hu Yanli's shirt loosened 2 buttons, and when Ming Xiao walked over, he glanced at the collar of his clothes. I don't know, Mr. Hu can't even perform a scar removal surgery. Hu Yanli fastened the button and said, Sheng, I have to give her a reason. You lied to her again. Not really, that's half the reason. The other half, it's too cruel, don't let her know. Sheng has always been easy to deceive, especially towards you, said Ming Xiao with a disdainful smile. Compared to Ming Sheng, Ming Xiao has a bright and decisive appearance. When she took over the Ming family, she was known for being ruthless and especially protective of her shortcomings. Ming Sheng is the only relative she cares about. Where's Sheng? I'm tired from crying, let her go to bed. Hu Yanli drank the coffee at hand and said, although it was very useful to sell it poorly, this time, I was really angry. Let's talk about it first, my family won't take you in. Ming Xiao was very kind enough to let him in. No need, Sheng is annoying me. Hu Yanli stood up and said, for years have passed, and I won't pursue her again. How could I be willing to let her marry me? Hu Yanli twirled the trigger finger on his thumb, which was the family seal of the Hua family. I haven't been in Yuncheng for 4 years, but I don't know how Hu Yanli's people would be bullied like this. Ming Xiao sat motionless on the sofa. If it weren't for the sake of making Ming Sheng forget Hu Yanli, she wouldn't have made such a move. Originally, when Sheng broke up, she would have recovered all the grievances of the past 3 years on his behalf. But now it seems that she doesn't need to take any action. When Ming Sheng woke up and went downstairs, he found that only his sister was waiting for her to have dinner downstairs. He instinctively glanced left and right. Not long after he left, the news of his return to Cloud City caused a stir, but he refused to step forward and stayed at the Ming family for a day. If this continues, something will happen. That's good, I thought I was dreaming again, Ming Sheng whispered and sat at the table, taking a sip of juice. Don't forgive Hu Yanli so easily. I know you have a soft heart, but it's because of this that you are so easily controlled by Hu Yanli, Ming Xiao said with a grudge. I didn't, Ming Sheng whispered. In Ming Xiao's eyes, the current Ming Sheng is more vivid than ever in the past 4 years. So what do you think? Ming Sheng didn't answer because she didn't know what she was thinking. There will be 3 performances in the theater in 2 days, and we need to go to He Xiting. Let's talk about it when I come back. So, what about He Xiting? After Ming Xiao finished asking, Ming Sheng surprisingly showed a hint of confusion. Sure enough, the main player returned and the substitute was easily left behind. It's okay, anyway you've also broken up, and we shouldn't see each other frequently in the future. Don't worry. Well, sister, you don't have to make things difficult for He Xiting. We're together, and my intentions were not pure either. I don't have to make things difficult for him. Missing my sister was due to him being blind. Don't regret it then. No, he has someone he likes. He once said, I'm very similar to Lin Wei. Although the situation is different, they do all see each other as substitutes, just for that face. Chapter 5. Breaking up, just idle people, etc. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, Ming Sheng pulled her suitcase to work. She was a Linglu who joined the top private song and dance troupe in China a year ago. She still feels fortunate to have been able to avoid Hui Yanli in a legitimate manner. He Xiting is here. Most of the people who can work at Linglu come from well-off families, and getting along with a few young people is also very enjoyable. Hey Jean, how have you been lately? Ming Sheng smiled at the young man in front of him. Not bad. Hey Jean is a flute player with a gentle personality. Such a boy is rare nowadays and can be considered a friend of Linglu's girls. Yuncheng. Ming Sheng walked into his office, and Linglu usually had two people in one room, usually with his partner. He Xiting. The people in the room arrived early, holding a pipa and playing with the strings. Upon hearing this, they looked up at Ming Sheng. Ming Sheng and Song Yunian have a good relationship, both of whom have a quiet and gentle temperament. Song Yunian has a gentle temperament, but there is a hint of lingering sadness in his eyebrows and eyes. Ming Sheng vaguely feels that Yunyan may have suffered emotional trauma. Ming Sheng put down his belongings, and Song Yunian looked at Ming Sheng's figure. He Xiting seems very happy. Did something good happen? Good thing. Is it okay if I break up? Ming Sheng wiped his Guzheng and casually spoke, but there was a hint of laughter in his words. Song Yunian held the pipa and his tone remained gentle. You really don't like your boyfriend, said Song Yu, who was young and slightly curved his brows and eyes. Compared to Ming Sheng's bright and exquisite appearance, Yunyan was dressed in a qipao with a simple and noble face, as if he had stepped out of an ancient painting. When the boss of Linglu interviewed, he jokingly said that they shouldn't come here, they should become actors and enter the entertainment industry. Actually, he shouldn't be a bad person, just not suitable for being a lover. Ming Sheng also took advantage of He Xiting, so he didn't have any resentment towards him. I have never seen your boyfriend before, and even when you're in a relationship, I learned about it by chance. You never talk about him on your own, and you don't get angry after breaking up. If you really like him, you won't be so calm. Ming Sheng sat on the piano bench and began to wear yijiao. After listening to Yunyan's words, he felt a bit worried. I told you a very bloody story, right? Song Yunian nodded and said, okay. Ming Sheng recounted the story of her and Hui Yanli, and finally looked at Song Yunian across from her. So I'm coming to work, I want to calm down first, he said. The person across from him didn't persuade anything, Ming Sheng just wanted to find someone to confide in. As for what kind of decision to make, it was Ming Sheng's responsibility. He Xiting really likes this person. Well, I can't do it, I can't even imagine myself falling in love with someone else, but I haven't seen them in 4 years, so I think we might be a bit unfamiliar. Ming Sheng blinked and the sunlight penetrated his eyelashes, casting a gray shadow on his porcelain white skin. Then take it slow. He Xiting is so good, but we need to let that person know that we are wrong before we can consider forgiving him. Ming Sheng nodded and the corners of his mouth curved slightly. It was already very good now. In 4 years, Ming Sheng had dreamed countless times of Hui Yanli being buried in the deep sea, but these days, she had never had any more nightmares. No matter what happens, as long as Hui Yanli is alive, this is something that Ming Sheng has been seeking for 4 years. Ming Sheng lowered her head and gently played the strings of the guzheng, and the melodious and ethereal sound of the qin emanated from her fingertips. Ming Sheng likes the guzheng, which carries the most beautiful memories of her childhood. Outside the window, the rain beats the banana trees, and the little Ming Sheng sits there playing the guzheng. She has just learned it and plays the simplest piece of music. In front of her, her parents were sitting together drinking tea and chatting, while the sister next to her was flipping through a brick-like book, so for Ming Sheng, the guzheng represents memories and the past. Ming Sheng's condition has never been better. During rehearsals, several people couldn't help but ask her what kind of elixir she had taken. Even the classical instrument teachers in the group nodded in satisfaction after listening. Although you used to be proficient in playing the piano, you lacked emotions. As a young child, why are your worries so heavy? Now, you have finally become more relaxed. This teacher is highly respected, and Ming Sheng also respects her. Thank you very much, Teacher Jiang. I will continue to work hard. Before each formal performance, they have to rehearse for half a month or even a month, during which the training of the song and dance troupe is semi-closed. As Ming Sheng and Yuncheng walked towards the apartment, his phone in his hand rang. He Xiting. Ming Sheng looked at the call and forgot to blacklist him these past few days. After hesitating for a moment, Ming Sheng still answered the phone. Where are you? Do you know today is my mother's birthday? As soon as the phone was answered, the person across from him began to question him. Ming Sheng listened to the high-profile voice on the other side, feeling annoyed. Indeed, in the past few years, whenever it was a birthday celebration for the family in Xiting, Ming Sheng would always give gifts. In the eyes of He Xiting's mother, she is deeply attached to her son and has always looked down on her. He Xiting, we have already broken up. You shouldn't call me for such a thing. Ming Sheng, don't get angry with me. You know, I don't like this, said He Xiting, whose expression was originally casual and stiff in the He family's old house, but, He Xiting, you should know that I have never had a temper with you before. In these 3 years, I have never mentioned breaking up with you. That's right, Ming Sheng never gets angry with him. So, if I break up with you, it's really a breakup. He Xiting, don't call me anymore, I won't answer. Ming Sheng, who do you think you are? Do you really think we're in a relationship? I'll tell you, I've never considered you my boyfriend before. If you have the ability, don't show up in front of me in the future. He Xiting seemed to be angry with embarrassment, but Ming Sheng breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, He Xiting, goodbye. Ming Sheng hung up the phone and added the person to the blacklist, blacklisted and deleted them. Song Yunyan was waiting for Ming Sheng not far away when he saw Ming Sheng walking towards him. Are you from home? Worried about you. Ming Sheng shook his head and said, no, it's just idle people waiting. Let's go, there's still time to go back and take a nap. And over there, He Xiting looked at the phone he had hung up on, stared at the screen, suddenly raised his hand and threw the phone out, falling onto the wall and causing it to shatter. Okay, Ming Sheng, I want to see how talented you are. The next day, the entire Cloud City knew that Ming Sheng and He Xiting had broken up, but no one believed it. They were all betting on when Ming Sheng would seek reconciliation. After all, everyone knew how infatuated Miss Ming was. 1 day, 2 days, 7 days, and half a month later, He Xiting stared at his phone screen, not a single call, and Ming Sheng seemed to suddenly detach from his life. He Xiting's father also asked him if he had a disagreement with Ming Sheng. With a reason, He Xiting reluctantly called Ming Sheng again. The cold words on his phone interrupted He Xiting's fantasies. Sorry, the number you dialed is an empty number. Chapter 6. Is a kiss, a reunion after a long separation. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. On the second day after Ming Sheng went to work, a distinguished guest arrived at Boss Ling Lu's office. He Xiting, the boss of Ling Lu, has a very strong background. Money is really not lacking, but the problem is that she can't afford to offend the person in front of her. Hui Yanli glanced at the teacup placed in front of him, his slender legs intertwined, and his hands folded on his thighs. I just want some shares, as much as possible, Mr. Zhao can offer at will. He Xiting maintained her intellectual elegance and looked at Hui Yanli in front of her. Mr. Hua, it seems that you haven't given me the right to refuse, have you? He Xiting looked at a group of people in black standing outside the door, and it didn't seem easy to provoke at all. It was like buying and selling. It can also be said that Ms. Zhao can rest assured that I will not interfere in the matter of the spirit deer. I just need a proof. Hui Yanli looked at He Xiting and said, Boss Zhao doesn't know anything. My fiancée A.E. is in Linglu and we've been having trouble lately. I'm trying to find a way to calm her down. He Xiting also knew that the incident of Hui Yanli returning to Yuncheng had caused a great uproar. In the 4 years since Hui Yanli's disappearance, the Hui family was under the control of Hui Yanli's uncle and aunt, but this person had just returned to the Hui family and regained control. It is said that Hui Yanli has been missing for 4 years and has actually opened up overseas markets. With this trump card, the Hui family's board of directors completely turned to Hui Yanli. The Zhao family has also said that before seeing the situation clearly, do not confront Hui Yanli. Who is your fiancé A.E.? Ming Sheng. He Xiting finally took the money and appointed Hui Yanli as an honorary director. If she didn't sign this letter and didn't want the money, she might not be able to leave the office today. I can't tell that Mr. Hui is still a passionate person. I can't talk about it, I just like this one before. Hui Yanli finished signing, but didn't leave. He just looked at He Xiting. He Xiting was actually a few years older than Hui Yanli, but his momentum was much worse. Do you have a lot of work time, Linglu? It mainly depends on whether there is a performance. Mr. Hui, Ming Sheng is excellent. I have seen many girls who can shine on stage, but in the end, they return to their families and spend their time in the oil, salt, sauce, and vinegar. He Xiting spoke with some regret. Of course, she knew that even a family like Ming Sheng could not compete with Hui Yanli, and some families highly valued whether their wives would show their faces. The man sitting across from He Xiting, who remained expressionless all along, suddenly softened his facial features and even softened his deep and cold voice. She was raised by me, and I raised my future wife, not a pet. So, if Ming Sheng wants to be a princess, she will be a princess, and if she wants to be a queen, she will be a queen, but she won't grow into a canary or a silk flower. Hui Yanli walked into Linglu with a newly issued work permit in his hand. Wait at the door, it's too conspicuous and will scare Madam's colleagues. Ming Sheng sat on a chair in his office, with a large earphone on his ear, and closed his eyes to listen to a Guzheng song. Song Yunyan went to the nearby practice room to practice, and Ming Sheng was the only one in the office. She has been practicing new songs recently and plays them quite smoothly, but when there is a transition, she always feels a bit awkward. She can only listen to this song over and over again, mastering all the tones in her heart. When the door opened, there was no sound, and Hui Yanli quietly approached Ming Sheng. The chair where Ming Sheng sat was very large, soft and wrapped around her. The window next to her was only covered with a layer of gauze, blocking out the glaring sunlight. The rest was to shine warm light on Ming Sheng. Ming Sheng closed his eyes, clapping his hands and wearing headphones that tightly covered his ears. Hui Yanli walked up to Ming Sheng's chair and blocked half of the sunlight. Ming Sheng closed his eyes, but still felt a shadow in his eyes. Ming Sheng slowly opened his eyes, blinked slightly uncomfortable, and saw the person next to him bending down, with a handsome face within reach. Hui Yanli has a pair of deep eyes, and Asian pupils are actually not so pure black. Instead, they mostly lean towards coffee and light brown, so Hui Yanli's obsidian-like pupils always appear very indifferent. But when he looked at Ming Sheng, his eyes were always filled with affection. You've lost a lot of weight. Ming Sheng didn't move, just looked at Hui Yanli. When he saw him, Ming Sheng saw that this person's facial features were originally quite three-dimensional, but now, Hui Yanli stood there, like a sharp blade unsheathed, with a fierce aura. Ming Sheng raised his hand and touched Hui Yanli's profile. Hui Yanli, I haven't told you yet. Welcome home, he said. Hui Yanli didn't respond to her, just reached out and clasped Ming Sheng's neck, then lowered his head and kissed him. Sheng, open your mouth. Ming Sheng's kissing skills were taught time and time again by Hui Yanli, but Ming Sheng is not an excellent student. But she obediently accepted Hui Yanli's almost wolf-biting kiss. Ming Sheng didn't struggle yet, just lightly patted him. Hui Yanli forced himself to leave slightly, only rubbing against Ming Sheng's lips a few times. Why are you still so well behaved? Hui Yanli's breathing became rapid for a while, and he lowered his voice with a satisfied smile. "I've always been obedient in front of you," Ming Sheng said with a hint of tears in his kissed eyes. "Has anyone seen this before?" Hui Yanli raised his hand and caressed Ming Sheng's cheek. Ming Sheng's skin was tender, and a red mark was left by the calluses on Hui Yanli's hand. Sheng, answer me." Hui Yan's courtesy language was warm, but the movements on his hands showed his fluctuating emotions. "If so, would you not want me?" "No, no matter what, I won't let you go. It's not Sheng's fault, it's my fault. It's me giving others a chance. If I want to hate you, I should also hate myself." Ming Sheng held his hand and shook his head. "No, he doesn't like me, doesn't want to be close to me, and besides, I won't get close to him either." "You'll get angry." An extremely magnetic laughter rolled down Hui Yanli's throat, staining Ming Sheng's ears red. It wasn't until this person laughed that Ming Sheng became angry and wanted to kick him that Hui Yanli stopped laughing. "Did Sheng forgive me for this kiss?" Ming Sheng took 2 steps back and said, dreaming, "I'm not that easy to deceive, this kiss." Ming Sheng looked up at Hui Yanli, revealing the most beautiful smile in 4 years. "It's just a long separation and reunion, it's just a long time no see," he said. "That's enough. After leaving this door today, I'll continue chasing Sheng, okay?" Ming Sheng turned around and was about to run. Hui Yanli held him in his arms and said, Sheng didn't forgive me. "I won't do anything, just hold him for a while. This is the embrace he has been longing for 4 years. Chapter 7. Mr. Hua doesn't understand chasing people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mr. Hua, do you have any instructions? The person speaking was Zong Yu, Hui Yanli's private secretary. Zong Yu was saved by Hui Yanli from someone else's hands in the beginning. Zong Yu had nothing wrong with it, and if he insisted, it was probably because Zong Yu was too smart, and his master at that time was too suspicious. But Hui Yanli likes smart people, so he takes Zong Yu as his own person. "Zong Yu, how can I pursue people for you?" "What? Give me a plan, try to be as detailed as possible, always find my little lady back." "Didn't you say before, that's your lover?" "Well, it was 4 years ago, and it's still the same now. It's just that I'm having trouble." Zhong Yu pushed his glasses and felt that Hua was always showing off, but as a subordinate, it's better not to talk too much. "How did you get along with Madam?" "Let's just let it take its course, after all, I personally cultivated her into a way that I couldn't do without." Confirmed, indeed showing off to him. "I will give you the plan within 3 days." Hui Yanli was already playing with his phone. Upon hearing this, he nodded and said, I'll give you a red envelope when we get married." Ming Sheng and his colleagues rehearsed for a whole day before finally getting a few nods from the teachers. "Not bad, thank you all for your hard work." Zhao Xian stood up and nodded. Ming Sheng is wearing a Ming-made hanfu, which is the costume for this performance. The costumes for Ling Lu's performances are also custom-made by individuals, and usually given directly to them after the performance. Ming Sheng raised his hand and shook it, smoothing the wide sleeves. He looked at Song Yunian next to him. "The clothes are quite nice, but I always feel heavy on my head." Song Yunian sat there with a very dignified posture, laughing at Ming Sheng's childish behavior. He had never seen Ming Sheng behave like this before. At the age of 24, a spoiled little girl was still a young child. This headdress is not cheap either. You don't need to wear a hair cover, it's already much lighter. Ming Sheng and Song Yunian were walking out together, and Song Yunian noticed that no matter what Ming Sheng said now, the ending sound was quietly rising, like a small hook. It seemed that he was really happy. Song Yunian suddenly stopped and said, Sheng, I'll go back first. I won't disturb you anymore." He gave a rare playful wink. Before Ming Sheng could react, he saw Hui Yanli standing not far away looking at her. Song Yunian smiled and slipped away from the side. Although he had never seen anyone before, this person had an extraordinary aura and was not an ordinary young master at first glance. Such a person could be worthy of Sheng. The rehearsal went smoothly. Yanli was wearing a white shirt and holding a large bouquet of white roses. Ming Sheng glanced up and down several times before walking up to Yanli. Did you learn this from TV dramas? Yanli rarely felt awkward. They said I'm not very serious, and now young girls don't like it. They want me to dress up young. Yanli is only 28 years old this year, which cannot be called old-fashioned. However, Yanli's momentum is too strong, which unconsciously makes people overlook that he is actually a young person. Sheng, don't bother me anymore. When Yanli was in school, from enrollment to graduation, no one took away his position as a school grass. However, it was a bit difficult for the now 28-year-old Yanli to dress up as a high school student. Ming Sheng took the large handful of white roses and said, "Why is it a white rose? Who told me earlier that the red rose was too tacky, she didn't want it." Yanli reached out and hooked the tip of Ming Sheng's nose, looking at Ming Sheng's expression. "Is today a little fairy?" Upon hearing these words, Ming Sheng instinctively looked up like a little peacock. "Yeah. You see, Yanli is like this. He doesn't need to do anything. As long as he appears by Ming Sheng's side, he gives Ming Sheng a sense of security and gives him the confidence to be arrogant." Yanli raised his hand, bent his finger, and hooked Ming Sheng's nose. "Our Sheng is still so beautiful," he said. Yanli is always quiet to the outside world, but when it comes to Ming Sheng, he is always generous in praising him. No one knows how Yanli developed this arrogant and introverted personality of the child who lost his parents at the age of 9 and hid himself timidly. No one knows how much love and money Yanli used to make Ming Sheng indispensable to her. "I know you've been busy lately, I won't disturb you, but let me come and see you, otherwise I won't be able to rest assured." Yanli's eyes drooped slightly. If his subordinates saw him, they probably thought the comet was about to hit the earth. Otherwise, why did Yanli show such an expression? It seems like a wrong dog. "Sure, but don't disturb my work," Ming Sheng said with a proud and coquettish expression. "Okay, how dare I?" Yanli followed Ming Sheng several times in the small garden of Linglu, and finally reluctantly walked back and forth. Ming Sheng stood in place, waving his hand at him. When Yanli turned back, he spoke as if coaxing him, "See you tomorrow." Yanli left with satisfaction. Yanli began to clumsily pursue Ming Sheng. Ming Sheng found that Yanli's method of chasing girls was like learning and selling from popular short videos. Ming Sheng finds it funny but also heartbroken. Yanli was enthusiastic and tirelessly followed the plan for pursuing his wife. Yanli had a meeting for the whole day today, and in the end, a few elderly members of the Hua family insisted on arguing with him about things that he deemed meaningless. Yanli's actions were too ruthless. In just a few days, the company began a major transformation. The people of the Hua family all know that Yanli is a genius in business. On the other hand, Yanli is also the most difficult to control. They chose Yanli initially, but they wanted to use this to manipulate him. However, it has been proven that Yanli will never be manipulated by their so-called kindness. Yanli looked at his watch and expressed his dissatisfaction without hesitation. "Everyone, are you sure you still want to waste time?" Even so, Yanli almost made the driver fly over at the speed limit, but he still encountered traffic jam on the way. Yanli loosened his bow tie and felt this wave of annoyance for the first time since he returned to Yuncheng. When Yanli's car arrived, half an hour had passed since the agreed time between him and Ming Sheng. Yanli almost rushed over, and then he saw the place agreed upon by the two. Ming Sheng sat there waiting for him, and when he saw Yanli appear, he almost instinctively smiled. "Did something delay you? Why didn't you just make a phone call?" Mr. Hua, who usually has a commanding presence, paused slightly upon hearing this before looking at Ming Sheng and whispering, "I was too eager to see you, I forgot." Ming Sheng hugged him and said, "Don't worry, can I still wait for you?" Chapter 8. Surrise, My Little Angel, Main and Deputy CP. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. When Ming Sheng was flying to He Xiting, Yanli had an emergency meeting on the spot. I will arrive before the Sheng performance. This is the first time I have seen Sheng perform on stage and I won't miss it. Ming Sheng looked at the message she received before boarding the plane, holding her phone. During her junior high school anniversary, a teacher asked her to play a piece of music, and Ming Sheng told Yanli hesitantly. "It's okay if you don't go, I know you're very busy." At that time, Yanli was preparing for the college entrance examination and took over the business of the Hua family under the arrangement of Mr. Hua. He was busy every day and didn't touch the ground. However, he knew that when Ming Sheng was going to perform, he promised Ming Sheng that he would definitely go and watch. Halfway through Ming Sheng's performance on stage that day, Yanli hurriedly arrived and stood at the back, holding a bouquet of flowers, celebrating his little girl's important moment. Today's Linglu performance, Ming Sheng and Song Yunyan's ensemble is in the latter half of the performance. Ming Sheng wears earrings and talks to Song Yunyan about today's repertoire. However, Song Yunyan seemed somewhat absent-minded. Yunyan. Ming Sheng turned around and looked at Song Yunyan's absent-minded expression. His eyebrows furrowed slightly, and his gaze fell somewhere, nothing but emptiness. "What's wrong with you? Is there something on your mind?" Song Yunyan is a very serious person who always focuses on every performance. It's rare to see him like this today. "It's okay, I just saw a news article, it seems like someone I know," Song Yunyan said in a vague manner. "That person wants to hurt you." Ming Sheng always felt that Song Yunyan had a hint of timidity. "No, he won't hurt me, and I don't know if I want to see him or not." Song Yunyan spoke ambivalent and sighed at the end. "Never mind, maybe I misread. It's time for us to come on stage soon." "Don't worry," Song Yunyan took a sip of ice water and suppressed his thoughts. "This is He Xiting, not France. That person shouldn't be here." Ming Sheng and Song Yunyan, even in Linglu, have a considerable reputation. Not only are they both highly skilled and full of spiritual energy, but their appearance alone is also pleasing to the eye. Song Yunyan lowered his head and played the pipa, with a gentle tone that brought people into the soft language of Wu Nong, a former Jianghuai woman. When Ming Sheng's Guzheng was added, the soft and charming sound added a touch of ethereal. That is a painted boat drifting over the Huai Sea. The pampered girls of the privileged family rarely go out to play. Although they cannot blend in with the crowd, they can play on the boat. The melodious music of the qin and the clear laughter of the girls have attracted the attention of many children on both sides. Just one song, Ming Sheng and Song Yunyan bowed and left. Linglu has a membership system, and there are many high-ranking officials who come to watch Linglu performances. In addition, everyone knows that Linglu people are not from ordinary families, and few dare to use hidden rules, but there are many people who pursue Linglu. He Xiting hasn't seen Ming Sheng for half a month, and even the project that the Ming family originally intended to cooperate with the He family suddenly came to an end. A few days ago, He Xiting was called over by his father and scolded, but He Xiting didn't say that Ming Sheng had already broken up with her. He Xiting is the second in the family, with a capable older brother above him. His mother is his father's second wife, and he is no match for his older brother at home. Until later, Ming Sheng chased after He Xiting, and the Ming family sent several projects to the He family, and He Xiting began to intervene in the company's affairs. Part of the reason why He Xiting treated Ming Sheng like that was because someone said behind his back that he was a soft eater. So He Xiting's pride naturally comes back from Ming Sheng. He Xiting is wearing a black suit and holding a bouquet of red roses. Today, he specifically came to He Xiting to watch Ming Sheng's performance. While Ming Sheng was playing the piano, He Xiting sat in the audience seat and looked at the people on the stage, feeling unfamiliar. At the same time, his heart was beating faster. In He Xiting's memory, Ming Sheng, who followed him, seemed to be ashen and even somewhat humble when facing him. But now Ming Sheng, standing there playing the guzheng, looks like a fairy falling from the 9 heavens, shining brightly. The little resentment and dissatisfaction in He Xiting's heart quietly disappeared, and the bouquet in his hand tightened. He only came to coax Ming Sheng reluctantly for the sake of the He family. He Xiting was mentally prepared and walked towards the backstage. Song Yunyan and Ming Sheng sat in the lounge, waiting for the final curtain call when Song Yunyan's phone shook lightly. When Song Yunyan and Ming Sheng were talking, they were still smiling and picked up their phone to take a look. "Long time no see, my little angel." Ming Sheng looked at Song Yunyan's face and suddenly turned pale, with a hint of panic in his eyes. "Yunyan. What's going on? Are you feeling unwell?" Ming Sheng touched Song Yunyan with some concern. "It's okay, Sheng, I'm not feeling well. I want to go back to the hotel first, so I won't attend the curtain call." Song Yunyan shook his head stiffly, looking at Song Yunyan's appearance. Ming Sheng was also worried and wanted to follow him. Song Yunyan was restless and responded to Ming Sheng's words haphazardly. Just as he opened the door to the lounge, Song Yunyan took a step back in fear. Standing at the door was a man with blonde hair and blue eyes, a handsome face, but a somewhat sinister gaze. "Surprise, my little angel. Who are you? Why did you trespass in the backstage lounge? Don't you know that idle people are not allowed to enter here?" Ming Sheng stood in front of Song Yunyan, looking at the newcomers with a wary expression. Someone looked at Ming Sheng, his blue eyes carrying a hint of smile, but he ignored him and instead looked at Song Yunyan. "Your friend seems to have misunderstood me, Anyan." Sheng, it's okay, I know him, he's a friend." Song Yunyan suddenly grabbed Ming Sheng. Ming Sheng looked at the person in front of him with suspicion, but Song Yunyan forced a smile and said, "It's true, it's okay. Sheng, can you go out first?" When Ming Sheng was pushed out, he still reminded Song Yunyan, "If he has any ulterior motives, call me and I will report it to the police immediately." Song Yunyan nodded, closed the door, and stood with his back to the person for a long time before speaking. "Hodgson, when did you find me?" Hodgson Frank, born into an old French aristocrat, made a fortune in grey business and had a bad temper, at least for Song Yunyan. 3 months ago, baby, you hid too carelessly." Hodgson approached Song Yunyan and looked at the tightly closed door. "Anyan's friends are also very interesting," he said. "Hodgson, I warn you not to think of her." Song Yunyan turned around and stared at him. "If something happens to her, I won't let you go." Hodgson raised his hand and said, "Baby, you know, as long as you listen, I will be very gentlemanly." Chapter 9. Old or New Love. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ming Sheng looked at the tightly closed door and didn't call the police, but he wanted to find a security guard. The man didn't look like a good person. Sheng. As soon as Ming Sheng took a few steps, he saw the person walking towards him. "Brother." Huyanli held a bouquet of white roses and looked at Ming Sheng. He was about to hand over the flowers and say some blessings. The bouquet was snatched away by Ming Sheng, and when he saw Huyanli, his heart became much more peaceful and he recounted what had just happened. "I always feel like Yunyan is very scared. Should we find a security guard?" "Don't worry, they do know each other." Huyanli was not worried at all. Ming Sheng knew that all the friends she had made from childhood to adulthood were checked by Huyanli privately. "Who is that?" "Song Yunyan's ex-boyfriend." As he spoke, Huyanli walked out with Ming Sheng and stood in a corner of the hallway. Ming Sheng held a bouquet of flowers, and Huyanli looked at the nearby table, carefully wiped a handkerchief, pinched Ming Sheng's waist, and then lifted it up, asking him to sit down. "Ex-boyfriend, why do I feel like an enemy?" Ming Sheng looked incredulous. Song Yunyan originally looked weak, but that man had a strong physique and could easily punch Song Yunyan. Sheng, the old man has been teaching me special forces since I was young, and he despises those martial arts masters who teach me all flashy things. Hui Yanli said, smoothing out Ming Sheng's long hair behind his ears. Ming Sheng's round cat eyes looked at him with a hint of confusion. Ming Sheng actually has a pair of almond eyes, which look extremely beautiful when dressed up, but her eyes are clear. When she put on makeup, she unconsciously painted her as a cat's eye, losing 3 points of charm and adding 3 points of agility. But now there is a bit more confusion. When I was not yet an adult, I could fight a few special forces soldiers, but even when I held your hand, I was afraid that too much force would make you feel pain. What do you mean? Ming Sheng didn't understand. I just can't bear to let go, Hui Yanli said lightly. Ah, it's time to bid farewell. I have to go and bid farewell. Ming Sheng stood up holding the flowers and looked at Hui Yanli, hesitating. Hui Yanli followed him and said, I'll accompany you. Ming Sheng held up his skirt and walked quickly towards the front desk, only to meet someone on a narrow path before reaching the front desk. When Ming Sheng saw He Xiting, he instinctively frowned and showed a hint of displeasure. Hui Yanli returned, and there was no dispute over the breakup between Ming Sheng and He Xiting. Ming Sheng naturally forgot about He Xiting. The most crucial thing is that Hui Yanli has returned, and Ming Sheng doesn't want to mention the 3 years she spent chasing He Xiting anymore. Hui Yanli doesn't mention it, but this person doesn't know how much he cares in his heart. He Xiting. Ming Sheng stopped, and He Xiting immediately saw Ming Sheng's surprise, dissatisfaction, and even a hint of disgust, but he was not as ecstatic as he had imagined. Why did you come? He Xiting stepped forward and looked at the white rose in Ming Sheng's hand. He felt embarrassed and didn't know who had given it to him. He frowned and wanted to snatch the bouquet of white roses, stuffing the bouquet in his own hand into Ming Sheng's hand. Ming Sheng took a step back and hugged the bouquet in his hand. What are you doing? Ming Sheng, I have already come to apologize. Can't you see it? Don't make trouble anymore. Ming Sheng felt like a small question mark was about to appear on his head. He Xiting, did you take the wrong medicine? Sheng Sheng. Hui Yanli stepped forward and directly grabbed Ming Sheng's shoulder. Ming Sheng didn't mean to break free, so he obediently leaned half of his body against Hui Yanli's embrace. Her body is more familiar with Hui Yanli than she is, and she can't even think of struggling. He Xiting's face suddenly turned black. He looked at Hui Yanli standing next to Ming Sheng and only glanced at him. He Xiting curled his lips and his anger dissipated completely. Ming Sheng, why don't you just find someone like this when you're looking for a new partner? He Xiting looked at Hui Yanli with a hint of disdain and said, Ming Sheng, are you interested in finding a substitute? Ming Sheng's phone rang, urging her. Sheng Sheng, you go first, don't be late, Hui Yanli said, bowing his head and kissing Ming Sheng's forehead. Ming Sheng nodded, hugged a bouquet of flowers, and ran away. He Xiting didn't stop Ming Sheng, just looked at Hui Yanli. Although I don't know who you are, you should be able to see that you and I do have some similarities. Miss Ming Sheng of the Ming family has been chasing me for 3 years. What did she give you? Money. Hui Yanli took out his wallet and opened it, facing He Xiting. Hui Yanli always kept a photo in his wallet, close to him. When he was in danger, he wanted to destroy this photo countless times, but in the end, he couldn't bear it. Without this photo, he might not be able to crawl out. In the photo, the girl is wearing a luxurious princess dress and a diamond crown, looking at the camera with a bright and bold smile. This is a photo taken during her coming-of-age ceremony at the age of 18, this is the only one. Hui Yanli looked at He Xiting's increasingly ugly face. Is He Xiting, the second young master of the He family? Hui Yanli put away his wallet. He didn't have that much arrogance, but standing there made people feel elevated for no reason. New love. Do you know how many years we've known each other? 15 years ago, I raised the girl myself. New love, old love. Hui Yanli spoke these 4 words slowly but heavily, almost crushing He Xiting. Mr. He, have you never noticed that when she looks at you, she is looking at others through you? Hui Yanli looked at the scattered roses that had fallen to the ground and the angry He Xiting who had left, leisurely tidying up his cuffs. Sure enough, this so-called rival in love has no threat at all. Hui Yanli got up and headed towards the stage. He should also go to pick up his Ming Sheng. However, this person reminded himself that in the past 3 years, people in Yuncheng have forgotten that Ming Sheng is the person of Hui Yanli, and not all cats and dogs can think of him. Hui Yanli mercilessly crushed the rose petals on the ground and uttered 2 words to Taki. Chapter 10. The Intimacy of Long Separation and Reunion. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. After Ming Sheng finished her curtain call, when she stepped off the stage, she still held the bouquet of white roses and looked at the people waiting for her backstage. Ming Sheng finally breathed a sigh of relief. I thought you had already left. Why do we have to leave? Hui Yanli rightfully hugged Ming Sheng's shoulder this time, not sure if it was an illusion. Sheng Sheng's shoulder seemed to be much thinner. Don't you get angry when you see He Xiting? Why am I angry? It's just a fake, Hui Yanli said coldly. Ming Sheng felt helpless and lightly rubbed against him, saying he wasn't angry. Sheng Sheng, I never get angry with you. This was a promise made by Hui Yanli 10 years ago, and the fact is, even if Hui Yanli gets mad outside, he won't show a single penny in front of Ming Sheng. Hui Yanli followed Ming Sheng to the hotel where Ling Lu stayed. Ming Sheng had previously contacted Zong Yunyan, who said she was not feeling well and needed to go back to the hotel first. Ming Sheng pressed the floor and said, Yunyan is not feeling well. I need to go back to see her first. What are you doing with her? What should I do? Sheng Sheng, I have nowhere to go now, can't I be taken in? No way, Ming Sheng glared at him. I live in a suite with Yunyan. Hui Yanli didn't say anything, just followed behind Ming Sheng. Ming Sheng stood in front of his room and waved at Hui Yanli. If you have the ability, come in. After finishing speaking, he swiped his card and sneaked into the room, afraid that Hui Yanli would be unreasonable, so he took himself away directly. Hui Yanli was not in a hurry either, just standing against the wall, silently counting time in his heart. In less than a minute, the door in front of him suddenly opened, and Ming Sheng rushed out of the room and directly into Hui Yanli's arms. Hui Yanli looked down at Ming Sheng's flushed face and said, What's wrong? You're not taking care of your friend anymore. Ming Sheng glared at him and said, You already knew. Hui Yanli smiled and looked at Ming Sheng, they are all men, so it's not difficult to guess. After all, when I first saw Sheng Sheng, I thought the same thing, but I am gentlemanly than him. Ming Sheng remembered that she had just entered the suite, which was very quiet. As soon as Ming Sheng closed the door, a faint and ambiguous voice came out, with a faint hint of a girl sobbing. Ming Sheng was stunned for a moment, his face burning with fire. He hurriedly opened the door and was about to run, but he didn't forget to let go of his movements. Hui Yanli extended an arm and hugged Ming Sheng. Now, do you need me to take in Sheng Sheng? Ming Sheng buried his face in Hui Yanli's arms and lightly tapped his head. Let's go then. Ming Sheng followed into Hui Yanli's room and looked at the large bed in the middle. Do you live here? Don't you have a suite? Ming Sheng's face was still warm, and he hesitated as he looked at the large bed in the middle of the room and the room that was clear at a glance. No, there's only one room left. Hui Yanli walked straight over and sat on the bed. I have booked all the other rooms. Upon hearing these words, Ming Sheng pursed his lips and said, Did you do it intentionally? Well, Sheng Sheng, I suddenly remembered something today. What? Ming Sheng walked over slowly, his mind filled with the sounds he had just heard. The more he wanted to forget, the clearer it became. 4 years ago, we didn't break up. When you were missing for 2 years, someone had to go to court to confirm that you were dead. How could it not be considered a breakup? That's 2 different things. It was confirmed that Hui Yanli went missing and died, but it was me who broke up. Aren't you Hui Yanli? It can also be different, Hui Yanli said bluntly. But what I like is Hui Yanli, Ming Sheng said as he walked over to the bed and sat down next to Hui Yanli. Hui Yanli stood up in front of Ming Sheng and removed the hair accessories from Ming Sheng's head one by one. I'm used to holding on to myself. No, it's not. Ming Sheng looked at Hui Yanli and took a gentle breath, brushing against his shirt as the thin fabric moved slightly. Ming Sheng reached out and touched Hui Yanli's abdomen. The abdominal muscles were tight and not something that could be practiced overnight. Ming Sheng reached out and touched it, thinking a lot, but he didn't know how many things this person had gone through, except for his chest, whether there were any injuries elsewhere. Ming Sheng was stunned as his movements became chaotic. Hui Yanli grabbed Ming Sheng's wrist and said, "Sheng Sheng." His voice was hoarse and dry, and his breathing was heavy. Ming Sheng fixed her gaze and saw that her hand seemed to have stopped in a dangerous place. Ming Sheng felt a bit lost and wanted to retract his hand, but his wrist was tightly held by Hui Yanli. "Sheng Sheng, I've been vegetarian for 4 years now. Can you pity me?" 4 years ago, Hui Yanli tricked her like this, doing everything he could except for the last step. However, even so, this person's occasional indulgence would still make Ming Sheng feel a bit miserable. "I haven't forgiven you yet." "I know." Hui Yanli stood up, picked up Ming Sheng directly, sat on his lap, and lifted his thin lips lightly, holding Ming Sheng's earlobe. "I'm not allowed to propose, but isn't it okay to be in love? Can I pursue it a little longer?" Hui Yanli coaxed Ming Sheng, speaking cautiously, but with constant small movements. His palm clasped Ming Sheng's waist, and the scorching heat transmitted through his clothes to Ming Sheng's skin. "Poor me, Sheng Sheng." Ming Sheng swallowed her saliva. She had been vegetarian for 4 whole years. Without Hui Yanli's world, her heart could hardly even show any charm. "Forgetting who I used to be, sneaking onto my bed and asking me to manage my abdominal muscles and mermaid line, that's the cost of hooking you, this little pervert." The blush that had just faded from Ming Sheng's face climbed up her cheeks again, and she didn't. "Without obtaining a certificate, we won't make it to the end." Hui Yanli's gasping voice carried a hint of impatience. "Oh, I haven't taken a shower or changed my clothes yet," Ming Sheng said in a compromising voice. Hui Yanli stood up directly and Ming Sheng hooked his neck. "What are you doing?" Hui Yanli roughly loosened his tie, which was not tight, but he always felt like he was holding himself tight, and even his breathing was not smooth, and he didn't have enough oxygen. Hui Yanli took Ming Sheng up the private elevator and went directly to the suite on the top floor. Ming Sheng's eyes were a bit hazy, and in his breath, there was the smell of silver springs on Hui Yanli's body. "Where are you going?" "Go to the top floor suite." "You just said you didn't have a room, scammer." Ming Sheng looked at him accusingly, but his gaze didn't make Hui Yanli any clearer. Instead, he felt angry. "This is my property, I'll lend you the spirit deer for free." Hui Yanli held Ming Sheng and brushed open the door of the top floor room. As soon as he placed the person on the bed, Ming Sheng's phone rang. Hui Yanli picked it up and was about to throw it out, while Ming Sheng still carried a hint of clarity. "Wait, see if it's sister, he said I can skip other people's calls, but Ming Xiao can't. My sister will worry." Hui Yanli took his phone and glanced at it. It was an unfamiliar number. "She's very busy," Hui Yanli answered and threw a sentence, then hung up and lost his phone. "It's old, I'll buy you a new one." That is the phone he gave to Ming Sheng 4 years ago, and Ming Sheng has been unwilling to exchange it.